The plants program is really something that I've been super excited about since it started back in 2011. So it's been around for a long time. And I'm going to give you an intro to, it's part of a broader program. So I'll give you a little bit of an intro to the broader program that plants is a part of here at the BSA. And then we'll talk about the benefits of the program, uh, what it covers and how it operates, and how to apply. I know people are interested in that piece. And then we're going to have a small panel of plants alums that will speak to their experiences with the plants program. And they range in different stages of their careers and also in different types of careers. So I'm excited to have them here today with us. And I'm going to get started with these slides here. So the plants program, which really stands for Preparing Leaders and Nurturing Tomorrow's Scientists, is part of now a broader program, which we call Botany and Beyond. Botany and Beyond is a grant that the BSA applied for, and it's funded by the National Science Foundation. So it's an NSF grant. And the objectives of the Botany and Beyond program are really fourfold, and they mirror some of the goals of the BSA strategic plan. And we put forward a new strategic plan that was approved by the membership in 2021. And these are those 4 goals for Botany and Beyond that mirror our strategic plan. Part of this program is trying to create a more accessible society, a more inclusive society. And by society, I mean the scientific society of the BSA and our botanical community broadly. We want to support emerging professionals. We want to increase plant awareness in our community and beyond this scientific community. And we want to provide opportunities to advance research and training for a more diverse and inclusive 21st century culture in the botanical sciences as a whole. Botany and Beyond has 3 prongs. So plants is just one, this plants program is just one prong of this broader Botany and Beyond initiative. So just as a background, I'm going to tell you about these 3 prongs. First, we are providing something that's new to the BSA called the Science Identity and Biodiversity Careers Workshops. And that is also designed for undergraduates. And we did not provide those last year, but that is going to be happening in this year and coming years. And those events will be hosted at a museum or a botanical garden, herbarium, where undergraduate students who are interested in exploring careers in the biological sciences are invited to that event. It'll be a few-day event with talks and career exploration. There's also the Inclusive Teaching Initiative, and this involves, it's held at the Botany Conference annually, and it involves community college educators and faculty from minority-serving institutions and tribal colleges. And they contribute to the meeting by making presentations of their own research. They get engaged with our teaching section and our education committee, and there are themed networking events surrounding that program. And then the third prong of the program is the one that you may have heard of the most, which is the Plants program, which is designed for undergraduate students from historically excluded groups in science. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, that's been going on since 2011. And there were even precursors to that grant and that program, but before 2011. So it has a long history with the BSA. And all of these parts of Botany and Beyond have developed over time. Different grants, were awarded to either us or some of our co-principal investigators, and it's all kind of coming together in Botany and Beyond. I skipped a slide. Now, I just thought you might want to see some faces of who is involved in Botany and Beyond and the plants team. So here at the top, you have the three co-PIs for the Botany and Beyond grant: Muriel Poston, myself, and Anna Monfils, all members of the Botanical Society of America, as well as several other scientific societies that these folks are involved in. And then as far as plants specifically, here's some faces that you might recognize. Anne Sakai, who was really the lead person that spearheaded the plants program in 2010 to get it off the ground. She is now an advisor to the program. And Maria Marrow, who's on this call, is the plants program coordinator. So let's start to get into the details of plants and how it operates. The program, again, it's really a travel grant designed for undergraduate students and recent graduates of their undergrad degree. And it operates based on a team mentored approach. So each student that comes as a plants recipient has two mentors, a peer mentor and a more senior experienced mentor. And they attend the meeting and together, and they're not together all the time, but they meet together at different points throughout the meeting to talk about the scientific presentations they've seen, the posters they've looked at. There's different networking events, there's special speakers that we encourage the plants cohort to attend. And of course, career exploration events that take place at the conference. So it's a mentored experience. There's also some training that's provided to the plants students, the plants recipients, and there's also training workshops provided to the mentors. There's really a focus on sharing stories, making connections, and some people don't really connect sometimes with their particular mentors, or maybe just one of their mentors they don't make a good connection with, but there's a whole host of mentors that are part of the program. So the nice thing is that you get to know the other people, not just your two mentors, but the other mentors that are part of the program. And you see people sharing their struggles, their challenges, their what they've achieved so far. And there's a lot of talk about nonlinear paths to how people got to where they are. So that all gets explored in small group sessions or like discussions with your mentors before, during, and even after the conference. Plants also has some built-in sessions to allow and foster career exploration. So we encourage, we require those who are attending as plants recipients to go to what's called Careers in Botany lunch. And that's a wonderful session that's put on by some of our student members in BSA that allows you to hear from folks in very wide and diverse different careers in the botanical sciences. So that's another part of this program. I think we've already talked about networking and scientific talks. Now, as I said, there's a long history of this plants program. And since it's been going on for so long, we've lately been working on some improvements to the program. For example, in this last grant, we were using some of the evaluation work and some of the post-conference surveys from our mentors and our past plants alums to help reshape the program and make some adjustments. So now we're able to fund 15 students a year, which is a few more than we were able to fund in the past. And we expanded the definition of underrepresented that we were using in the grant, which allows us to accept more students into this program. We also implemented a new process where potential mentors had to apply and fill out an application form. And that is allowing us to, and we revised the student application form as well. And that's allowing us to make better matches between the students that are part of the program and the mentors that are assigned to them. A few other things, we have so many alumni, like over 100 alumni in this program. So we fund now an alumni lunch. So if you go through the plants program, one thing you should know is that we never let go of you. So we invite you back, and you might get questions from us about where you are and what you're doing now. And we really do, BSA really does care about the students that come through the program and are curious about how you're doing, where you are. And even if you're not working in the botanical sciences and you go off in a different direction, we want to know how you're doing. And we keep track of the students that come through the program. So we're also working on some new training and networking opportunities for the program, bringing in some special speakers for like during the summer before the conference takes place. So doing some short training, 1-hour webinars with the group before they get on site for the botany conference this summer. Here's just a nice picture of our cohort last year. We didn't get everybody in the picture. I remember it was really fast that we ran outside to do this shot on the terrace in Anchorage, Alaska, where we were having the botany conference last year. This is some of the folks that were involved.
And then I think it's me.
Yeah. Do you want me to stop sharing?
If you want to keep it through, that's fine with me.
Okay, just tell me when to advance and I'll do that.
Sure. And anybody who's here in the audience, I'm going to talk about some of the application process. So if you have any questions about that, just feel free to stop us as we go and ask questions, because that's why we're here. Okay, so hi, Maria Marrow. I was a plants grant recipient. I was also a recipient of the community college grant. So I've kind of been all around plants. It's been nice to be folded in. So Plants 3 grant, this is a really great grant because there's a lot of stuff that's included in with it. So you get a 3-year membership to the BSA. So when this will be on a future slide too, but when you go to apply for the Plants grant, it says that you need to have a BSA login. You do not need to buy a membership. You can get a free membership if you get the grant. So you just need to create a login, but you do not need to buy a membership to apply. You get transportation to and from the conference. So this is typically airfare, but if you're closer and you're driving, then we can do a mileage compensation instead. You'll be working with me on that. So feel free to email me any questions you have. I can help you find flights, look for airfare, figure out your transportation. You also get up to $100 toward an optional field trip. So that's typically going to cover one of those extra early field trips. I highly recommend that if you plan on attending the conference, that you try to go to one of those field trips. I went on one that was lichens, and I knew nothing about lichens, but they just drove us out, dropped us in the woods, and I got to talk to a bunch of really interesting people and get poison ivy for the first time as I just started touching things. So it's a great opportunity to start learning about the area that you're in, and then also just start meeting people, because people are speaking more freely out there in the field, I think. Covers your conference fees completely, and there are some group meals. So there's some events that you're required to attend. There's also just conference events where you can get some free food. Then you get a meal stipend, which is a new thing that allows a lot more freedom and flexibility for people. Since this event will be in downtown Boise, there's going to be lots of options for places that you can eat if you do not want to eat at the conference hall. Immersive mentored experience. So this is something that Heather was talking about earlier. You get a near peer mentor. I found this part particularly helpful because my near peer mentor invited me out to do a lot of social things, and I'm not a very social person. So that really allowed me to break out of my shell a bit. And then my more established career professional was just a great renegade dude. Loved him. So fun. So the dynamic between those two, and then your sort of triad of 3, can be really interesting and rewarding, and I loved it. And then this last one, the pre-conference online webinar, that's going to help prepare you, meet some of your cohort, get those familiar faces, so that when you do show up at the conference, you'll be able to recognize some people, know who the safe places are to go to. Next slide.
I'm falling down on my job already.
Oh, you're doing great. Okay, so this is a sample schedule. You'll see a bunch of stuff in here and it looks really packed. All the stuff that's in that lighter blue color, the all society events, those are not required for you to attend. They're just something that a lot of people are going to be at. There's usually food. There's sometimes great speakers. So it's just in there to show you like, hey, this is a potential event that you might want to go to. The ones that would be required would be these events in green, and then these little yellow ones at the top, the check-ins are short. And then there's this Botany Beyond lunch and the Botany plenary address. So the yellow and the green would be the ones where you want to go to those. And then the blue ones are optional, but recommended. So there's tons of room in there for you to kind of make your own schedule. But, okay, so the application process. So the BSA membership is not required, right? You do need to make a BSA login. I'll show you where you're going to find out how to do that on one of the future slides. There's going to be an online application form. So when you go to our website, it'll take you to the awards portal. That'll take you to the application form. Then you just fill it out online. There's going to be a few other things that you need to include with that. So you'll send in your unofficial transcripts and your letter of support. You can attach those as PDF documents, or if they come in later after you've already submitted your application, you can send them to me and I can put them in as long as it's before April 1st. There's going to be a personal statement of your interests and goals. So this will be, there's a few chunks of it laid out in the application form. So it's pretty clear. You just want to make sure you hit all those points. It can be easy to get distracted and just focus on one of them. So you want to just kind of make sure you wrap those all together. And the last thing is we have a deadline of April 1st. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so here is our Plants Grant website. So you will find a ton of information in here. If you're just looking for that application button, you're going to scroll down. It's not all the way to the bottom, but you'll scroll down, you'll see this little highlighted green button. So if you'll go to the next slide, Heather, it'll show. There it is. Okay, so this, I've already clicked on these links. So for me, they appear dark purple, but typically for you, they'll be blue or something. So this create one here link, that'll take you to the place where you make your BSA login. If you already have one, then you don't need to do this. But if you don't have one yet, you just click there. It takes you to the login. And then if we go to the next slide, when you get to that login, this confused me at first. There's this conference ID, because I always skip the little text at the top because I assume I don't need to read it. But this tells you what the conference ID is. So I was like, conference ID, is it like the botany conference has a number that I have to put in? No. This is where you're creating your just little identifier for yourself. So it just suggests using your first name and your last name. So if you get confused, there you go. And then we can go to the next one. All right, so once you've created your login, or if you already have it, then you just click the apply here, and then that will take you to the awards portal. You can also click the click here button, same thing. You might have to scroll down a little bit. Just look for the 2023 Plants Grant, and then you'll click on that one. Ooh, actually, before you click on that one, up in the top right, there is a login spot. So you got to log in here, and then it'll refresh this page. Then you click on the grant name. And so that'll take you to the spot that you apply. And if you're logged in, you'll have this option to create a new plants grant. If you're not logged in, that won't show up for you. So if it's not showing up, that blue button, you just got to make sure that you're logged in. And then that's kind of it. You just go through and you fill out the form. And if you have questions, you can email me at plantsgrant@botany.org, which I'll have on a future slide. But that's the application process. So if we go to the next slide, we can get to the next part of our webinar. So we are going to move into an alumni panel. Feel free to ask us questions during this. I think we'll go in an order of kind of plants evolution. So we'll start at the earliest conference and then go to the later. So we're going to kick it off with James. And James, you can tell us anything about your experience that you feel is relevant.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen too. So I want to be able to see James.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Heather. I received the Plants Grant in 2011, one of the first cohorts. And at the time, I really didn't have a lot of experience in plants outside of a few undergrad classes with my undergrad advisor, Nancy Cowden. And she was really influential in terms of just getting me excited about going out in the field every day and, collecting fragrance from roses, which is what my research was on at the time. And she actually had put it on my radar in terms of the plants grant. And as soon as I read about it and everything like that, I knew that it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So I decided to apply, and I just didn't really realize how monumental that decision to apply and moving forward would be in terms of my career trajectory in life. It was really, just inspirational. But, just starting there in 2011, it was just really nice. As soon as I got there, everybody was really friendly. I met Heather, I met Ann Sakai, as Heather had mentioned earlier, and they, were really excited to have not only me, but all of us. I remember my roommate at the time was Clayton, which you'll probably have, buddy peers within your cohort that you'll become, really close with. I still keep in touch with him to this day. And, it was just a really great experience in terms of not only connecting with people, networking with people, but also really learning about botany as a whole. I had only done a little bit of research in terms of floral fragrance. I had only taken a plant biology class, learned the basics of, botany that everybody learns in the traditional sense of, plants, fungi, kind of everything meshed together. That's not, an animal or animal-like. And from there, it was just really eye-opening to learn about, the anatomy of plants, to learn about a lot more about insect pollinator coevolution, to learn a lot about plant physiology, and to just get to know a lot of different people. And especially getting to go to different talks. I remember one of the first talks that I heard was from Peter Rabin. He had given, the plenary address that year. So that was really monumental as well. So, it was just amazing getting to meet all of the people that, I had Peter Rabin's textbook as an undergrad as well. So, just putting names to faces. And just in terms of relevance, I would definitely echo what Maria said in terms of networking. Even if you feel like you're shy, just know that everybody there is going to be in your corner. They want you to succeed. They're happy to have you there. You wouldn't have been selected and been brought on if they weren't there to, make sure that, that you're having a great time and that, you're benefiting from the plants grant. So just network with people, really get to know everybody. And I would also say that, going on the field trips are really beneficial as well. I remember going to Monsanto at the time and meeting a lot of people that were potential advisors in terms of grad school as well, which I didn't know at the time, just talking to them, getting to know them on the bus on the way to the field trip. And then later on realizing that, hey, these would be potential connections in terms of grad school and moving forward. So really take advantage of all of that. And then also go to as many talks as you can, especially talks outside of your field or outside of your comfort zone. Even if you think that you're not going to understand anything. I ended up doing my PhD on evolutionary biology and essentially looking at evolutionary relationships. I had no idea what a phylogeny was when I came to the plants grant, and that's what I did my PhD on. So just go to every type of talk, even things that you don't understand. You'll be amazed at, what you learn and how you grow. And it's just a great, amazing overall experience that, I can't trade for anything. So, yeah.
James, can you tell us a little bit about where you are now and what you're doing and what your next steps were after you left that conference? What did you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ended up applying to graduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I knew that I still wanted to work in floral fragrance, but I had also gotten that interest in evolutionary phylogenies essentially from the conference. And I ended up applying to work with Ken Cameron. He's one of the world experts in vanilla orchids. And we really hit it off. I was really interested in carnivorous plants as well. He had done papers on that. So in terms of networking with him and getting to know him was really instrumental in terms of getting into grad school. But from there, that was really essentially the catalyst in terms of moving forward in my career. I spent 7 years in grad school there working on orchids from Ecuador. I spent quite a few summers going down there collecting data on the floral snap traps, looking at essentially acceleration and velocity and how that relates to their evolutionary history. And at the same time, I was also very fortunate to be the student representative to the Botanical Society as well. So I was elected by my peers to hold that position for 2 years as well. I got to sit on the board and learn how BSA as a whole works, and just be influential in terms of a lot of the events that you'll notice that you'll be going to at the BSA conference. For instance, the career panel luncheon, I was able to facilitate that a few years, help find speakers for that, and many different other activities as well along the way. So I really enjoyed that. I got to also help out with the newsletter that we worked on. We worked on specific articles through that. And after grad school, I spent a couple of years working as an adjunct instructor at Edgewood College, and specifically taught biology, but I was also teaching environmental science on the side as well. That gave me just a whole other wealth of knowledge. I didn't have much knowledge on environmental science. I had never really taken any classes, but I was offered to teach that. So I, jumped at the opportunity, and it just really made me realize that I not only loved plant biology and botany, but I loved biology as a whole. Like, looking back on a lot of the classes that I had as an undergrad in terms of biology, I didn't really take them seriously until I got into botany, in terms of I did well in them, but I didn't in terms of really learning the material. And I really learned that, teaching the material really enforces the learning of that. And it made me really love just biology as a whole. And it essentially came down to looking at job opportunities after a few years as an adjunct instructor. And I knew that I still wanted to have a mentoring role, being able to help people grow, and, being able to propel their career forward as well. But I also wanted to be able to have an avenue, essentially, with life in terms of financial stuff. So I ended up going the industrial route in terms of biotech industry. So I worked for a year in the cow and pig industry, genotyping, looking for genetic orders in cows and pigs in Wisconsin. And I just recently moved to Torrance, California. And now I'm managing a lab. And we particularly look at, we particularly cryobank stem cells. So we pluck and collect hair follicles and cryopreserve those for future regenerative medicine treatments. And right now they have me working on a lot of grant opportunities. So one of the things that I just did was apply for a grant to look at ageism, specifically in women. One of the products that we have is for fine lines and wrinkles, and essentially correlating that to health and longevity. Essentially, how can approving fine lines and wrinkles over time, how can that affect mental and social health, and how can that improve people's lives in that aspect? So yeah, it was really just my love of science and my passion for it that kept me around in the field, and also wanting to have a mentorship role. So being able to manage, and I have lab techs that I work with closely on a daily basis, and we do a lot of different things in the lab. So still get to have that aspect as well.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing, James. We have a small enough group. Is there anyone that has a question for James right now? You can just unmute yourself since we're a small group. And if not, if you think of a question, we can move along to Maria, who's from the very next year's cohort of the plants program, 2012.
Woo! So I went back to college. I took some time off, a big chunk of time, didn't know what I was doing. Took a botany class, loved it. started working in a paleobotany lab. Did not love it, but I loved doing lab stuff. I thought that was great. And then in that lab, I think it was my lab PI who alerted me about the plants grant. And so I was at a point where I was just applying for everything. I applied for every scholarship. And so I applied for the plants grant, not really thinking that I would get it. I didn't really consider myself as underrepresented, but I definitely didn't know anything about what it was to be in college or what it was to be a professional scientist. So it was a great opportunity for me to be able to participate in, because I do not know how my path would have gone if I hadn't been able to go, because it was strange coming into a university where I had just been kind of working as a baker, working for a lot of women who own their own businesses, which I thought was really cool. And then I came to a university where most of my professors were male, and there seemed to be this real gender bias in what was going on. And I grew up in a family that was very much like that, very much bad to be feminine, women are sub, so that, I don't know, that dynamic kind of came back when I went back to college. And so going to the plants grant, where I got to meet Heather and Anne and the other Anne, and see all these really strong, amazing women, and just have that, I think, was the big takeaway for me, was just this, I felt a renewed female empowerment. And when I went back after the plants grant, I just felt very confident in being a woman and being in college and hell yeah, I'm going to do this. And then the other big part of it for me was just meeting people. I didn't make a lot of professional connections, but I met a lot of people who were just really inspired about botany and people who were really inspired about teaching. And that shaped where I went, right? Because then I became a college professor. So I went to Berkeley for grad school, loved my cohort, loved what I was learning, hated being in grad school, really didn't like it. So I was in a PhD program. I ended up getting my master's, and then moved back to Humboldt, where I live right now, because also when I went to grad school, I went down to the Bay Area, and that was in 2014 to 2016, which was peak drought. And I study fungi, so that was terrible. So I was just always driving back up here, and then I finally just decided to just move back up here, and was fortunate that when I did move back up here, I started teaching at College of the Redwoods as an associate faculty, and then shortly after I arrived, the botany professor retired. So it's just really good timing for me, because it's tough to get a community college job because there's not very many full-time professorships. So the timing worked out really well. And now that's what I'm doing. I teach botany and environmental science at a community college. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I don't know if I would have had the confidence to jump wholeheartedly into some of the things that I did without kind of the backing of the plants grant. So I really appreciated that, just springboard, and somebody putting some confidence and belief in me as I went forward. So that was what it was for me. If anybody has questions for me, you can ask. I'm ready. And then if not, I'll pass it over to Casey.
Okay, it's a quiet group today, but it is Friday. So thank you, Maria. And Casey is with us, and she's from the 2017 cohort, I believe. Take it away, Casey.
Sure thing. Okay, hi, my name is Casey. I am, as Heather mentioned, part of the 2017 cohort for plants. I am in my 4th year of graduate school now at the University of Florida, working with Pam and Doug Soltis on investigating some stuff that has to do with hybridization, genomics, how hybridization can help trees live in new places, stuff like that. So a lot of my work is very computational, and that was kind of a surprise to me when I first got started with research, because I started with wet lab stuff and it was very much like, oh, well, I guess I'll go and do research with that, but ended up finding a different interest. And I guess I'll circle back around to that later. My experience with the plants program was I had already been kind of working in a lab at the Morton Arboretum in Lisle, Illinois. And we'd been doing a lot of stuff with phylogenetics of oaks, and I wanted to present my research somewhere. So my advisor at the time said, hey, well, you know, you've been doing this at the undergraduate conference at your university. Why don't you step it up a little bit and try to do it at one of the national conferences? So he suggested applying to this program to be able to go to that and do this. And that was, and I guess as a note, a lot of plants program participants end up kind of taking either a poster or a talk or something, because that is an option. And if that isn't an option for you because you don't have something you're ready to share yet, that's also totally fine. It's just one thing that you can do if you're thinking about that. So I guess my experience with the program, I would say, I will second what James said about kind of going to a bunch of talks that are maybe outside of your comfort zone, just to be able to soak in some of the culture of what's going on at the conference. And I would say botany is a little bit more of a friendly conference. Everybody's a lot more casual. You're dressed like a little below business casual, and there's a lot of friends there to see each other. So it is good to be able to just take in like, oh, well, this person is working on this, and that's really cool. And I thought that was really exciting. And they are also working with this person who's working on this, and just getting a feel for kind of the culture of academia that's going on at the conference is really useful if you're thinking about graduate school. Another thing is, I think I found even more useful than the talks, all of that time in between the talks. So my two mentors and I were fairly close, and I was definitely very, very close to my faculty mentor. And because of that, we would kind of schedule time after every talk. I'd go with her to a talk, and then we'd schedule some downtime to decompress a little bit, because be freaking out about not getting something or not understanding part of the talk. And then we'd get to talk about what graduate school was like for her, what things she would have wished she'd known when she applied, and what she would have wished she would have known as she was going through the program. That's kind of where I learned about how graduate school funding works and all of these other really important cultural things that happen when you go into a PhD that aren't necessarily articulated when you're an undergraduate if you're not really deeply embedded in a lab already. So I think that's one of the really great things about the program, is just getting to pick people's brains about what your next options are. And even if you don't want to go to graduate school, if you want to go out and find a job, like if you're able to ask people who've been considering industry jobs, so postdocs, for instance, who are looking for them, like what are you thinking about right now? How are you putting your CV together? So things like that have been really, really helpful. And I found that my mentors for the plants program were incredible for that, and really anchored me during the program. Let me think, is there anything else? Oh yeah, I guess the other thing is your mentors, at least my philosophy as a plants mentor has been, I am here to help the students in any way I can. And that means maybe going to the talks that they want to go to instead of my own. So do feel free to push your mentors a little bit. Like, I'm really interested in this thing. I really want to go see this stuff, because they are supposed to be there for you and not to, necessarily be dragging you to all of their stuff. And also along those lines, they're there to help grease the social wheels a little bit. So if you want your mentors with you and to have them introduce you to people, or to have them with you when you talk to people and ask you questions to prompt you for things to talk about, if you're not 100% sure what to do, that's totally okay. That's totally within the parameters of what the program should be all about. And I guess I'll leave it there.
That's a great point, Casey, that you made about the mentors, that you might have to push them to get outside of their comfort zone. And I've heard that a lot on the post-conference surveys from our mentors, who will say, I went with my student to these talks in this area that I would never have gone to, and I learned so much. This was such a great experience for me. So they are learning too. And that's so cool. That's such a great thing about this program. You guys in the triads, they learn from each other. You know, it's very fun to watch. So I think now is a great time for questions about either from the panelists that we had or about the application process. And I see Amy's already got her hand up, so she was ready to go. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys so much for sharing your stories. I really appreciate that. It's great because I had some students that I took to the 2013 meeting who applied for the grant and didn't get it, but they were very good about figuring out who the group was and kind of went with the group and did a lot of the activities, and it benefited them immensely to do that. And they just got so much more out of the meeting. So it's a great program. I think Casey might have answered my question. I have two students now who I was going to recommend applying to this, but one is a student that I advise now who will have a poster prepared, and so she will go to the meeting anyways, but it would be so much better for her to be connected with other people. The other student is like a friend of a friend who wants to go to the meeting, but I don't think she's in a situation where she will have research. Should I still recommend that she applies to this? And that's what I just want to hear a little bit more about. What are you looking for in your applicants, or what's the goal? Like where in your career trajectory of an undergraduate to graduate are you kind of looking for?
Definitely. Very good question. And I'd say, we are really looking for a mixed cohort. So we love to see almost every year this happens. We will have folks in the cohort who know exactly what they want to do. They've done undergrad research and they have this trajectory all mapped out for themselves, and they're very driven and they know exactly what they want to do, and they're presenting at the conference and they've got something prepared already. And they tend to be kind of leaders within the cohort. So it's lovely to have those people. So we don't turn you away because you are already knowing what you want to do and you're already prepared. But we also don't turn away students who are just exploring, right? Because this is also, the plants program is really designed to help turn students on to the possibilities. So if you haven't done research, you're not presenting research, that is totally fine. Actually, most of the plant students don't. It's usually 2 or 3 students in the cohort that are presenting. That's typically what we see. So I would encourage both of those students to apply. A lot of it is about the mix of students. There are so many that we want to accept that we can't just because of our funding limitations. And so sometimes it comes down to like, what is the mix? Because we can't accept all students that are knowing exactly what they're going to do and they're incredibly driven and they're all seniors. And we don't want to also accept all sophomores who really, this is their first entree into a scientific meeting and they really are just beginning a journey to discern what they're interested in. So that wouldn't create a good mix in the cohort.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Ethan.
Yeah, going back to what it's actually what James said about his how the conference helped with his general appreciation for biology. And I was wondering if this conference sort of features like how much does in terms of I guess how, outside of botany, what other is there a lot that this conference has to offer in terms of more intersectional well, no, I guess my question's kind of weird. It's just is there a lot of creative freedom with the research presented at this conference is what I'm trying to say.
I'll have to pass on that because I am not a scientist. So you all that go to all the talks should answer that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, James.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's a great question, Ethan. I think that was kind of like my idea in terms of botany when I first went. You know, was it like very like narrow focused, or is there, like you said, like lots of areas in terms of like creativity and also just like fields within, I guess, botany? And it really opened my eyes to the fact that botany is just like the focal point in terms of plant biology, right? But botany is so much more than just the plant biology as the focal point. You know, you have evolutionary biology, you have plant physiology, you have genetic research, you have agricultural cropology are all studied within botany. It's just that botany is the organism that, you know, plants are the organism that you study. So I think it gives a lot of different avenues all over biology, no matter what you're interested in, specifically in biology. It's just that, you know, plants are going to be your tools to answer questions about biology, essentially. And I hope that answers your question. But
No, that's very good. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Oh, sorry, before Dominique goes with your question. I think the other thing is there are a few colloquia that are going to be based on teaching and on science communication. So that happens every year as well, if that's what you're into. Otherwise, I'd say that a lot of it is, like, as James was saying, it's the focus is plants, and then there's a bunch of different disciplines that orbit that. And there's a very strong focus on kind of taxonomy and people who love plants as plants. So one thing that you'll be able to appreciate if you end up coming is, I guess, people having passions for very different plants and just being willing to talk your ear off about that. And it's very fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
There's definitely a lot of like the environment around the plant. Like there's talks about the rhizosphere, there's talks about fungi, there's talks about lichens. Just depends on the year, but I think there's a pretty good diversity. You could probably go to all the talks that are not quite about plants and it would still fill your schedule.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for the question. That was a good one. Dominique's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Dominique. Thank you so much for hosting this webinar. I kind of wanted to ask if you had any tips on the personal statement, how to make that stronger, or if there were any tips that were on the website that you kind of would recommend us to emphasize.
That's a good one. If you go on the webpage about the plants grant, where it talks about the personal statement, it's fairly guided there. It provides, what is it, Maria, like 4 or 5 basically questions that you need to answer. And so it's directed. The personal statement is directed by 4 or 5 different questions that we'd like to see. And oh, thank you. In the chat, very handy, Maria has posted those.
Expensive.
And it is okay, it is pretty extensive, yes, the questions. And the statement is not supposed to be very long. So I actually think the hardest part will be culling it down to a cohesive statement. So things, what was the other part of your question? Things that you should emphasize, or?
Yes, so kind of relatedly, do you think that we should allot kind of equal real estate, so to say, per each of the prompts, or is there one in particular that you think would help make us a stronger candidate?
I think part C, this how do you hope the plant program and the botany conference might help you?
I totally agree.
I think that's the part that'll be, the other stuff is kind of informing what your interests are and what kind of mentor you might work well with. But otherwise, that C is really the meat of it, of like, what is this experience going to do for you? And you might not know, but hopefully this webinar gave you a little bit of information.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Other questions about the application process or even about the conference itself? One point I was hoping to make have an additional panelist, and he couldn't be with us. But one point I want to make is that it's not all about academia. I mean, you're hearing about a lot of people going to grad school and going on and things like that. But we've had plant students that go into government agency jobs or private industry like James. We have people that become high school teachers. So, I mean, I love seeing just the diversity of what people are doing now, especially since now we've got, 100 something alums from the plants program. They're all over the place. Some people are working in nonprofit work, conservation jobs. But one of the fellows that wanted to join us today but couldn't be here, he works for the Forest Service. So actually, I think it's like 5 to 6% of our BSA membership works in government agency work. So it's kind of interesting. And
Copper's also plants alum, if anybody wants to
Yes.
ask Copper any questions.
Yes, I received the plants grant in 2019. I'm one of Maria's former botany and environmental science students, and she encouraged me to apply for it. I did, and I had the opportunity to go. It was amazing and made a lot of friends. Had a lot of opportunities to learn about things I wouldn't have otherwise known about. And yeah, it was great.
And you're gonna go to grad school for what kind of general?
So I'm a lichen person and was actually paired really well with my peer mentor, studied lichen Nicholas fungi, which are fungi that parasitize lichens. So that was one of the realms that I was totally opened up to. I didn't know, I wasn't aware of that specific relationship. And so, yeah, I'm preparing to apply for grad school, and I'm interested in the biogeographical distribution of lichen communities. And I'm going to work for the Forest Service this summer, assessing lichen communities, and yeah, happy to have gotten the opportunity to attend the botany conference and be a plants grant recipient.
Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
And I
it's good to
see
you again.
Casey said in the chat that Josh is also a plants alum. That's so fun.
Hey, Josh, thank you for joining. Maybe he'll be a mentor this year. No pressure.
But actually, I do have a question about that. So I'm in like that liminal space between undergrad and grad school, and I got some offers, so I'm definitely gonna go to grad school next year. But I was wondering, do the near peer mentors need to be in grad school, or could they be someone like me, a post-bac?
You do not need to be in grad school to be a near peer mentor. We always love to have plants alums come back and mentor.
I second that. I think I was either just applying or just got into grad school when I was going to be a peer mentor for the first time. So definitely a diversity within the group.
You'll
and
have
you already
that,
know a ton about the program because you've been through it. Right.
you have that extra fresh experience of like, I just went through all this stuff about grad school, and this will be what people probably want to know.
The other thing we should mention about the meeting is that it's just a lot of fun. So we hope that you will apply for the grant. Take the time to do that. And if you don't get it, I should mention that BSA has other avenues of funding for students. We have a lottery that's for student and postdoc travel awards. Those are $500 each. And it's a very simple form that you fill out, and it's purely a lottery. We also have within the BSA, because it's a very large umbrella organization for the botanical sciences, we have little sections, right? So your different niche areas that you might be studying, like ecology or genetics, those sections, some of them have travel awards for students. And so that's another route for funding. So besides the Plants Award, which is wonderful and gets you a mentored experience at the conference, there are other ways to get funding for the meeting too. if that doesn't pan out for you. So I encourage you to apply to any and all. We wish we had more funding that we could help students to get to the meeting, but the meeting is a lot of fun. Of course, lots of science, lots of learning going on, but also lots of fun happening. There's a student social one evening. There's an undergraduate student event that's targeted just for undergrads. Sometimes there's a career fair. And yeah, we just have a lot of great fun at the meeting. And it is, as Casey said, the friendliest scientific conference you'll ever go to, but I'm biased.
And along those lines, apply for all the grants. Just apply for everything. Apply for all the scholarships, apply for all the grants. Just keep a Word doc or something where you save all your responses, and then you can cut and paste the good stuff out, right? You're going to write up this long statement and just save that, apply for other stuff with it too, craft it for those things. But I think there's so many scholarships and grants out there that you're bound to get some of them, right? Just I go for the R strategy on that one, where I apply for everything, and it works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, but yeah. Oh yeah, and figure out your letter writers and get to them early. I think, is it just one letter of recommendation that's required?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
So any other final thoughts or questions from anyone here?
I just wanted to echo the sentiment that the conference is truly fun. It's not all about professional networking. I guess the hidden secret is all of those little blue events that are all optional. Go to those. Those are going to be the things that you have a lot of fun at. So just take advantage of all the mixers, the social events. They're tons of fun.
Heather,
You're muted.
We have to have that at least one time in a Zoom call, right? Or it wouldn't be a Zoom. I'm just thanking everyone for attending. In the chat, hopefully, if I can actually get it in here, you'll be receiving a post-conference or a post-webinar survey about the webinar. And I'm also putting it in the chat here. It's very brief form. Appreciate it if you'd fill it out. And this has been recorded, so if you didn't get to participate in the entire Zoom today in the webinar, it will be recorded and it's been recorded. It will be posted and it will be shared on the botany.org website. It'll be shared in an upcoming BSA newsletter. And I really appreciate the time of James and Maria, Copper and Casey for joining us so they could share their perspective about the plants program today. And thank you to the rest of you for taking some time out of your Friday to be with us. And come to Boise.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great one. Have a good weekend.
Woo, spring break.